What's going on, guys? Pineapple Swayers. I'm bringing you guys a Batman Arkham Knight video. And before we get started, just wanted to shout out all of the channel members. I've been kind of forgetting from time to time to shout out the channel members, but shout out to the Collector of Worlds, Tammy, Lance Fox 23, Unknown Name, Stixie, Reed Fletcher, Stretch, Clint Fortune, and Javerd for being channel members. Thank you guys so much. If you want to be a channel or become a channel member, click the link down in the description. Let's move on though to today's video and today's topic, and that is Batman Arkham Knight might honestly be the best superhero game of all time, but definitely the best Batman Arkham game of all time. Now, I've had this debate with many people before, and as time has gone on, I have loved Batman Arkham Knight more and more. I used to not really be big on Arkham Knight, as I just kind of thought it was a weak entry in the series, but as some time went on, I have grown to love this game more and more, and honestly feel that if it's not, one of the best superhero games of all time, if not the best superhero game of all time, I can at least say that, well, this game is the best Batman Arkham game of all time. Let me explain. Now, I'll be trying to, refrain from using the term perfect, because you can definitely say something's perfect, but if you look at it from, a game's flaws or even movies, you can point out stuff and eventually make it feel that it isn't perfect. I don't think really anything is perfect. You can definitely say it though. Like I could definitely say that this is, the perfect video game, because in a way it is, but if I was to make a video, which I'm not, about, calling out all of its flaws and mistakes, then, I wouldn't have that same perception on the game as it being perfect. But I think for me, something to describe this game that makes it so great, and I think a lot of people can attest to this just with the Batman Arkham collection, especially Batman Arkham Knight, is that no matter what comes out in some shape or form, you always come back to this game. Like every year I'm always playing Batman Arkham Asylum, Batman Arkham City, and Batman Arkham Knight. I always come back to these games because I love and adore these games and think that they are so great. They're not just a game series for me that I played one time, picked up one time, and that I was done with. I'm always revisiting this game, and I'm always learning new things about these games. And I think that's one thing for me that makes it so great, and I think for a lot of people that makes it, one of the best superhero games and the best Arkham game, especially for Arkham Knight. In general, it is just, a great trilogy. While, to kind of counter argument this is, for example, Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. I like that game too. Sue me. But I haven't really returned back to it. I've only played through the story one time because it didn't really entice me. Although I enjoyed the game and had a lot of fun with it, it just didn't really attach to me. It didn't really grab onto me like how the Arkham collection did. While Batman Arkham Knight, Batman Arkham City, Batman Arkham Asylum, I'm always coming back to these games. Once or twice a year, like what I said, I'm always playing them and always looking for something new to do. I'm always trying new strategies, always, just doing something to just play this fun experience again. Even from just doing side missions or doing the challenge maps, just learning a ton of new things. Like something I did 2 years ago back in 2023, which I don't recommend, is I completed every single challenge map in Batman Arkham Asylum, Batman Arkham City, and Batman Arkham Knight. It was super difficult, but I did it, and I had a lot of fun doing it. There was a certain map that I don't remember at the top of my head, but in Batman Arkham City, that took me like 6 hours to complete. But I did it anyway because I enjoyed it. And I think that's what something these games offer, is just replayability. And for some odd reason is that they still stand out today. I think a lot of people don't really like to admit that the Batman Arkham collection really still looks just as amazing, to this day, and looks better than some modern games, some 2024, 2025 games. And it's absolutely insane to say and think that, but it's just the truth. Batman Arkham Knight, still graphically looks amazing, and it feels amazing. It plays amazing. Everything about it is amazing. It's just a great game. And, I used to not really be big on this game. It was my least favorite in the series. But like what I said, time went on, and I've just grown more and more to love this game, and I'm always coming back to play it. And I'm just like, man, if Rocksteady, if they make, when they do release and make their next Batman Arkham game, Batman Arkham Knight needs to be the obvious blueprint, because Arkham Knight worked. Although a lot of people give Arkham Knight a lot of bad rap for some certain things that happened with the writing and the story, And you know, for me, a big part of it was the Batmobile. We can't deny that this game is absolutely incredible. From the graphics to the character designs and just how the game flows, it is an absolutely amazing game. I don't know how you guys feel about Batman Arkham Knight, but like what I said, you know, you could even, you know, I probably will make a video on it about the argument of how it might even be the best superhero game of all time. But, you know, if not the best superhero game of all time, it is definitely the best Arkham game. Now, you know, when we move on in the future, you know, to the next Batman Arkham game, we'll probably be having that same discussion then. Is Batman Arkham whatever the best Batman Arkham game? We won't know until we cross that bridge, but you know, it's just something about Batman Arkham Knight and how it just kind of stands out, and how, you know, a ton of people still play this game to this day, and how just everything about it just kind of flows so well, and it just meshes together so well. And you know, like what I said, I think a big part of me for this game is just the exploration of the city and how the game just kind of looks and feels. You know, a lot of games graphically sometimes today still just kind of look dull and don't really stand out. You know, I'm not going to throw any games out for examples, but, you know, there's a lot of games. You know, there's probably a game that came to the top of your head when I said that games just look dull and kind of stagnant today. But Batman Arkham Knight, you know, it just pops. Even though this game is dark and grim and kind of has that aspect and vibe of, you know, a Batman character, of that the world's supposed to be dark and full of evil, you know, it still pops out and has a lot of color and just kind of shines well. It's a perfect balance, to say the least. And, you know, one thing that I don't like about this game is, I will say it, the repetitiveness of the Batmobile, but it doesn't really define the game. It's just a part of the character. Did they overuse the Batmobile? Oh yeah, most definitely. But at the end of the day, it's still one of the coolest features in the game. I remember using the Batmobile for the first time and thinking it was one of the most unique things ever. You know, it's a part of the character. It's a part of Batman. It's what makes Batman cool, is driving the Batmobile from point A to point B and destroying everything in your path while you're at it. And then with the addition of, you know, being able to use its weaponry against, I guess we'll call them, you know, unarmed drones or whatever, unmanned drones, which, another funny thing too is, if this game, you know, if the Arkham Knight just put actual people in the drones, it would be an entirely different game, but that's another discussion for another day. We can even make a video about that, but I don't know, you know, it's just something strange about Batman Arkham Knight, you know. I originally thought that Batman Arkham City was my favorite game in the series, but I'm always coming back to Batman Arkham Knight. I'm always playing it, and I'm just always spending a ton of time on this game. I'm always coming back to this one. Arkham City, Arkham Asylum, not so much. I still play those games on a yearly basis, but Arkham Knight, it always just feels like there's something to do. Even though I know deep down, you know, there's no content, there's nothing new. You know, I'm always finding something brand new to try out, to just see, and to just have a lot of fun with it. And honestly too, I think that's just what kind of makes this game so great, is that it's just replayability and this ability that it still kind of just stands strong, you know, throughout time. You know, this game in June will be 10 years old, and like what I said, it's one of the best looking games, and it just kind of feels like, will they ever be able to replicate this game? Will they ever be able to match it? You know, that was a big problem, I feel, for Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, is that we went from Batman Arkham Knight, which was practically perfect in every single way, to Suicide Squad, which was significantly flawed. And then when they make their next Batman Arkham game, you know, it has to be either on par with Batman Arkham Knight or better. But it's like, man, how does Rocksteady even, how do they make something better than this? I'm sure they can do it, but, you know, it opens up that question. They weren't able to do it before. And, you know, another thing too is, you know, when people look at superhero games, what is kind of the blueprint for your superhero game? It's Marvel's Spider-Man and Batman Arkham Knight, because they just kind of changed the game. And it's not necessarily a bad thing, it's just those games are so good, every superhero game sort of needs to follow that blueprint and be very similar to those games. Because, you know, who doesn't mind, you know, having a Batman Arkham Knight and a Spider-Man game? Although, another argument to that, not trying to change the subject, but it's the same case with Spider-Man 2. Spider-Man 2 is an okay game, But when you compare it to the first game, you know, people were kind of disappointed. Same thing with Kill the Justice League. When you compare it to what was before and Batman Arkham Knight, people were heavily disappointed. It's just because these games have set standards, you know, these golden standards of this is how a game should be. And I think Batman Arkham Knight, in all honesty, you know, 5 years down the line, is still going to look good than games that come out in 2030, because it's just that good. And, you know, to talk about, well, what are some of the game's flaws? Well, like what I mentioned, the Batmobile can be a little bit repetitive, and the story is weak. And I can nitpick and pick on things time and time, you know, again, but those are some of my big concerns. And I think that's what a lot of people don't like, is that the game's story is a bit weak. I would say the villain is a bit weak as well. And like what I said, the Batmobile can be pretty annoying to deal with after the third mission. It just gets repetitive and boring, going through the same missions over and over and over with the Batmobile. Now, you know, like what I said, you know, I've said it over and over. You know, after playing these games over and over and over, I think, truth be told, Batman Arkham Knight is their best work. They put everything out on the line to make this game amazing. And later down the line, years from now, decades from now, we'll still be talking about just how great Batman Arkham Knight is, which is why eventually, like what I said, I might even make the argument in the video and the case that this is just the best superhero game of all time. Because when new superhero games come out, what are they comparing it to? They are comparing it to Batman Arkham Knight. And even though, you know, you could say that this game's flawed and has problems, you know, if you really love the game, you know, we always come back to it. And I think everyone has something good to say about Batman Arkham Knight. Even if you are the biggest Arkham Knight hater in the world, you can acknowledge that there's something about this game that you at least enjoyed or liked, you know. And that's what it kind of comes down to. Let me know what you guys think, though. You know, do you guys think Batman Arkham Knight is one of the best superhero games of all time, if not the best superhero game of all time? Do you guys think it is the best Arkham game of all time? You know, like what I said, I used to be on the fence about this game and kind of disliked it. But after playing it again, time and time and time again, I learned to just kind of just love it more and more and more as time went on. And just sort of being fortunate and kind of miss the fact that we used to get games like this. You know, that's another factor too, which I'll probably save that debate because that's a whole another discussion, is that, you know, we don't really get games with this high of quality anymore, especially in the superhero genre. And for you know, for better or worse, you know, there's the whole case of live service too, but you know, I won't be talking about that today. But let me know what you guys think. How do you guys feel about Batman Arkham Knight? I honestly am moving towards the fact that this might just be the best superhero game of all time. It definitely is the best Arkham game of all time, but maybe eventually it'll take the crown of the best superhero game of all time, because, you know, still to this day, Batman Arkham Knight, I would say, is the golden standard when it comes to a great superhero game. Anyways, though, this is Pineapple Sway. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Peace out.